Let's do it.
You start.
All right, I'll start. You twist my arm. I'll start.
Why are you waiting for me?
I don't know. I'm just making sure you're ready. 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, 4 to go.
I just drop them on you, man. I don't prep you.
Oh, that's true. I just like to, make sure we're all in the right headspace here, the right, warmed up, ready to go.
This show's already off the rails.
Welcome back to Pride and Accomplishment. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jason, and this is... And I'm Jason. This is episode 47. Unless you want to do the whole thing again.
No, it's fine. I was gonna.
Let's do the whole thing again.
Okay. All right. We'll do the whole thing again.
Because it's supposed to designate the point at which
we are on.
You start the show.
Yes.
Let's do it again.
The intro is a key part of the structure of the show. It denotes that we are ready to begin the show.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that the audience needs it. The audience has chosen to push the play button at this point. I don't think they need an indication that the show is about to start, but we do.
I need it. Okay, we'll really just cut out all the middlemen here. I need this. Welcome back to Pride and Accomplishment. I'm Chris.
And I'm Jason. This is episode 47.
Jason, today I'd like to start the show with a little bit of follow-up, which is something that we don't always do.
Structure to the show? What?
Yeah, so a couple episodes ago, we talked about mobile games, and I just wanted to put a note out that on April 2nd, a whole bunch of new games just joined Apple Arcade. Well, and actually, I should say new, they're actually old games that have joined Apple Arcade.
Yeah, you told me this right before the show started, and I was surprised to hear this. The games that they're kind of announcing are exciting to me. It's like there's a bit of nostalgia running through some of these.
Yeah, so recently, Apple Arcade on April 2nd, they just put out all of these new games. And remember, a game coming to Apple Arcade means that it doesn't have in-app purchases and terrible mobile ads, as we discussed previously. So some of the highlights here that I saw on the list were Cut the Rope Remastered, which is one of those classic mobile games where you had the little candy and the little monster thing, and you had to get the candy to the monster by using like physics to cut ropes.
The little monster is so cute. But that game is also, I really like that game because it's like the motion, it's a perfect mobile game. It's just one of those ones that like tiny little swipes in just the right area on the phone screen are all you need to do to beat that game. That is what a good mobile game that is. So if you've never played Cut the Rope, man, I highly recommend.
Yeah, it's also one of those games that you can play in vertical orientation. Like it was one of the first big games where you didn't have to turn your phone sideways in order to play it. I feel like, well, this is just my perspective. And so to me, that was a big plus because then it wasn't like obvious that you were playing a game on your phone. If you were like sitting like in a waiting room or like in an airport or something, like you could just be like, yeah, I'm just, here I am. I mean, now it's much more like normal for somebody to do that. But at the time, I liked not having to have two hands to play my phone games and being able to do it with one.
Yeah, that was the bigger part for me, was the ability. I mean, I don't know. I usually get the biggest phone that's available. So I'm not always playing. I can't really play with one hand, but it was the vertical kind of like you could rest it in one hand and or you could put it up against something and play with one finger. So that Cut the Rope is a great game, but there were, I mean, I see others on here. Some I recognize, some I don't. But another one is Fruit Ninja, which, it's an okay game. It's kind of fun. It's gotten, I think there are some ups and downs to it. But the nice thing about Fruit Ninja being on Apple Arcade is that there's no ads, there's no interruptions, there's no there's nothing that kind of just prevents you from just playing the game. And I really would enjoy that kind of experience when playing Fruit Ninja.
Yeah, a couple others of note would be Monument Valley, which is a really, really good puzzle game. If you're looking for like a really chill puzzle game, Monument Valley Plus is one of these Apple Arcade games, and it's like a really nice little puzzle game that doesn't really have any stakes to it. So that's really a good option. Don't Starve, if you really like those difficult roguelike games. Don't Starve Pocket is on Apple Arcade now. And Mini Metro Plus, that's the companion to Mini Motorways, which I think we talked about during the Apple Arcade episode. And you basically build little subways on a little screen. And it's very chaotic and very difficult, I would say. It's one of those games where you kind of build it, and it becomes more and more stressful as you go because you have passengers that have to get between cities and all this stuff. So it's a fun, challenging game.
Yeah, very simple graphics and whatnot. I would say Mini Metro is way more stressful than Mini Motorways.
Agreed.
But both are very fun.
Yes. And Mini Motorways is also on Apple Arcade. And the last one that's really fun to play and doesn't take a lot of brain power, but is very like addictive from a one more turn kind of a thing, is Threes.
I don't know this one at all. I've never heard of this. You wrote it down here, and I was kind of like, what the heck is this?
Have you ever played 2048? There was a Flash game or something that was 2048. Yeah. So Threes, I think, either came before or right at the same time as 2048, where it's one of these games where you slide the entire field of little number tiles, and the number tiles will stack on top of each other if they are a match, and then they will like sum together. So you like slide 2 3s on top of each other, they become a 6, and then slide 2 6s on top of each other, they become a 12, etc. Right, and they can keep going all the way up to I don't know how many. And all of the little tiles have little smiley faces on them, which are kind of fun. And then when they get next to each other, if they're the same number, they start to they make their little faces like at each other as if it's like prompting you to match them. It's a very fun take on the concept. It used to cost, I want to say like $3 or $4 to buy it, and maybe you can still buy it. I'm not sure what the parameters are of this deal, but it used to be kind of expensive. I mean, I actually had it. I had bought it because it was a really nice, like no ads kind of a game before this. But now I'm really excited that it's on Apple Arcade because then more people will get to play it.
Is it any different than 2048? Like, is there anything that's different about it from a gameplay functional standpoint?
Yeah. So everything in Threes is everything moves by one space, so they don't go all the way across.
Oh, okay. And how do you lose? Is it like you fill the whole board and you don't have any more space? Or?
Yeah, you fill the whole board and you can't move anymore. And everything is all multiples of 3. It starts with 3s, except that it starts with 1s and 2s, which are colored red and blue. And you can match 1 and 2 and make a 3. And then everything from there is, match 2 3s, match 2 6s, match 2 12s.
Gotcha. Huh. I'll have to check that one out. I don't know. I'm going to check all these out. I really like Cut the Rope. Fruit Ninja without ads sounds great. Never played Monument Valley, but I know that one. And Mini Metro, no thank you.
Too stressful.
Too stressful.
They also came out with it's not an old mobile game, but they added a new Oregon Trail game to Apple Arcade, which seems interesting. Like
a new like a new experience? Like a what now?
I mean, I think it is like the old Oregon Trail game that you would play like in your, I don't know, elementary school or something.
Wow. I mean, I guess it was just a text adventure game for the most part.
Yeah, looking through this, there's a bunch of screenshots and they look very pretty. Like there's a bunch of like animated looking characters on this new phone version of Oregon Trail.
Wow. Okay. Heck. All right. I'd play that again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll pick it up and give it a shot because it's included in my Apple Arcade subscription.
All right. So, I mean, I think the big plug now is that Apple Arcade's over. I just looked at the ad. Well, it was 180 games.
Mm-hmm.
So this is bringing it up closer to 200, all included in one subscription. No ads, no nothing, no microtransactions. It's a pretty compelling offer if you play phone games,
and if you have an iPhone.
That too. That is a prerequisite.
Besides playing a bunch of new mobile games on Apple Arcade, do you have any other kind of gaming goals lately, Jason?
So much going on. I don't know what happened. So I'm thinking back to the episode we had at the top of the year where we said, what are we most excited about for 2021? And we kind of talked a little bit about how 2021 was going to probably be a pretty big gaming year. Just because of the boost it saw in 2020, some of the stuff got delayed, so that, it made its way into 2021. But it is kind of all crashing down on me at the same time. And I don't know how you feel, but honestly, I feel overwhelmed with the amount of things I want to do in the gaming world right now.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, except looking at my kind of list of things that I want to do, I don't know how to put this. None of them are new, right? All of the things that I'm looking at are not even like new games that have just come out that I want to do. they're like just things that I want to do in games that I already have almost.
I would say mine's kind of half and half in that way. Some of the stuff is new. Some of the stuff is like refreshed. You know, I think we both kind of have Rocket League Season 3 on our list. That's like one of those things that like the timing just timed up, right? It's the start of quarter 2. It's the start of Season 3. And I think that's just going to happen. Some of the stuff on my list is like a new game, and other stuff is just like, for some reason, either there's an expansion or there's some big changes going on, or it's just like it's made I don't know. It's just taken me by storm right now. I want to talk about all these, but I don't want a 7-hour long podcast. So maybe do we want to start with some of the overlap you and I have, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I look at we have some lists, and Jason's list is about twice as long as mine.
Yeah,
for the things that he wants to accomplish or do compared to kind of what's going on here. Maybe we could take them one at a time. We could alternate a little bit, and we've got some overlaps, so we can get into bigger topics on those.
Yeah, I've got some smaller ones, I would say, that maybe only need a sentence or two.
All right, go for it.
Yeah, I would say, like, we talked about it last episode, but Overcooked 2, we talked about, like, wanting to do more of that. So, you know, there's that, like, little piece of it. EVE Online is just, for some ungodly reason...
Don't even say it, Jason.
It's just kind of coming back, and there's, like, big changes going on in the industry of EVE Online. I'm a weirdo in that, like, even when I'm not playing a video game, particularly like MMOs with very like volatile markets and all that, I really like to keep my eye on like YouTube videos or updates about those games. And EVE Online has a bunch of content going on right now around like the changing of industry and some of the market conditions that the developers are doing. And it's just so interesting to me. And like anytime I see it, I just want to kind of get back in part of it. So it's kind of pulling me back, and it's a point of contention between Chris and I, but, man, I think at some point this year, at some point in 2021, I will probably be trying EVE again. I don't know how successful it will be. The other one that's kind of like that, just real quick, is Elite Dangerous, also a space game. But they are putting out an expansion this year that I think I talked about being excited for. And it is like the alpha recently dropped. Some of the streamers are starting to pick up on it, play a little bit of it, and you're starting to see a lot of content around it. And it looks really good, like really compelling.
This is that Elite Dangerous thing where you can like get out of your spaceship and walk around.
Yeah, there's like on foot missions now. So you actually have a person, and like you could previously get out into a vehicle on the ground, but now you can actually like sabotage a base, or like deliver documents, or, you know, you have to go assassinate people, or you have to spy on something. Like there's just missions that you would expect to see for things that require to get out on foot and become an FPS, right? It becomes an actual like a, I don't know. I don't even know what to compare it to. Like almost like it's almost as open world as like Grand Theft Auto, whereas it's just like you go wherever you want, you do anything that you need to do, but it's this massive universe. And you get there by flying a ship that you own and landing on a planet. It's just really cool. It's really cool to me. Still early stages, but the expansion should be coming out this year. And I've been staying very tied to it. The reason I want to get back into it, though, is because I kind of want to establish myself like into the Elite Dangerous game a little bit more. I've played for a couple of hours. I think it would be a good idea for me to, you know, really get some income going, or playing the game, really getting comfortable with it before the expansion comes out. So
is Elite Dangerous the kind of game where you have to do that kind of setup of an economy? Like EVE obviously is, because it's an MMO and it has all of this, like these markets and systems and industry and stuff. But like, to me, I thought Elite Dangerous was more of like a pop in, play for a little bit, pop out kind of a thing, not with much persistent overarching work going on.
There's nothing that really happens when you're not logged in, if that's kind of what you're asking.
Yeah, I think that's where I was going.
But there is an element of like knowing how to play the game and knowing some of the systems. You know, the interesting thing that they've done with the alpha so far is, you know, the whole thing is about being on foot. But the whole game up until this point has been about flying a ship or being in a vehicle. But it's been really fun to watch the alpha because the first version they released, you couldn't fly ships. You had to do everything on foot. If you needed to get from point A to point B, you had to take the new taxi service that they have now that like didn't allow you to fly your own ship. So it's been really fun to see like a very different side of the game. But what most people are saying is this is most definitely an expansion, right? It is most definitely an addition to the core game that is space flight ships.
Is this a paid expansion?
Yes. Yeah. It's not monthly or anything. It's just one time purchase.
Okay. It sounds intriguing to me. I did not enjoy Elite Dangerous, the first game, like the base game. So I'm almost like, I want passenger mode where I can just go hang out in Jason's ship while he flies to whatever the next thing is. Because I really didn't enjoy the flying part of Elite Dangerous.
I don't enjoy the combat part of Elite Dangerous. I think it's boring. I think space combat is boring. I think we talked about that on a previous episode. There are elements of Elite Dangerous you and I didn't touch. One of them being mining and exploration, which I think we may enjoy a little bit more. So that one, I think we should I'm going to give it another shot for sure. No doubt. But I think you and I may enjoy it a little bit more if we play together and go do some of the things that we have enjoyed in other space games. Elite Dangerous at its core, though, is a sandbox, right? Just like Eve. So it gives you so little direction, and it really doesn't tell you what to do next. And that is sometimes a little scary.
Yes, I anticipate having a hard time with that. That's going to be a tough one.
You do okay in Eve, though. What's the difference?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the difference is. I mean, Eve is, I pick a thing, and usually it's mining and industry, and usually it's mining mostly. And that's like a very easy to define like task or thing to do. And I might be conflating this with No Man's Sky at the moment, but like things where it just drops you on a planet and says you can do literally anything. Like I get stuck on some of that. Whereas when I can say like, I want to do mining, and what do I need to do mining? I need a mining ship. Okay, how do I get a mining ship? Okay, I buy it with money. Okay, how do I get money? I mine. Okay, great. Let me go figure out, look up the table, figure out the most, profitable mining thing right now, and go figure that out and work towards a better build of a mining ship and kind of go through that whole step. I didn't get that vibe in Elite Dangerous, at least as much as I played it, which was granted mostly the tutorial, but I didn't feel like I felt like I was just kind of doing the busy work quests because that was what the tutorial was. And I didn't enjoy most of the different types of missions that the tutorial was giving me. So I might just need to be more targeted and less of a jack of all trades on Elite Dangerous. But I don't know. I just don't, I feel a little bit resistant to it because I also don't feel like I need a new space game right now. Like I think I'm okay.
You don't want the same problem I'm having, is what you're saying.
Well, yes, I'm trying to avoid turning into Jason on some of this.
Well, okay, when you ultimately come around, we should try mining. I think that is the direction I want to go in Elite Dangerous as well. So I think that would be a good single kind of focused goal that both of us could go after. But this is way more time than I planned on talking about Elite Dangerous because there are, I think, much bigger games on my list.
All right, what's next?
We talked about it. Rocket League Season 3. By the time this episode releases, that'll be out. We did very well in Season 2 in terms of like how much we got done, how close to the finish. Like I generally met my goal of being able to pay for the next season's Rocket Pass with stuff I earned in the previous season. We did not make it to Diamond, but boy, are we close. We're so close.
Season 3 will be the season we get to Diamond for sure.
Yeah.
No, I did have a lot of fun with Rocket League. Rocket League has become a nice default game for our friend group, I would say, to jump into, and because the rounds are so short, right? You can just hop in, play 2 or 3 rounds of Rocket League, and that's only 15 minutes. Like it's very much a nice, like, hey, we'll just pop into this as a common thing that we can all do, and then maybe people are off doing their own thing also after that. So it's a nice kind of social thing, at least to me. I'm looking forward to season 3. I did also make enough credits to get to pay for the Rocket Pass for the next one, so that feels good, and I will definitely be signing up for it, even though it is NASCAR and Formula One themed, which is really not my cup of tea, but we can talk more about it when it's out. Maybe there's going to be some gems in there. I actually, this season, way surpassed my goals as far as levels go. I think I made it to level 180 on the Rocket Pass or something like that, which is way higher than I ever have before. But that's just because, like I mentioned, a lot of people have shifted to playing Rocket League. A lot of my friends have shifted to playing it, so I have more people to play with and more opportunities to play.
And what did you get for it? An entire page of wheels.
Yes, the polyurgic wheels in Rocket League. I have more than an entire page. I think I counted. I think I have 23 or 26 of those different colors of the wheels. I have all of the regular colors and all but maybe one of the inverted color of the exact same wheel. And they're just always those wheels. And I don't understand. Just every time I get a loot box, it's just all wheels. So here's hoping that season 3 has a little bit more variety in the loot.
Okay, I'm gonna punch through these because I really do want to get to some of the bigger topics. Outriders just came out. I don't have an opinion on it yet. It has had some trouble in the first couple of days, but I am playing it, and I am trying to get through it a little bit. Destiny 2 is this reoccurring topic on my list. I think it's on yours too, but it's just not time yet. I think we're gonna wait one more season and get to the end of it, or start a season kind of when the season starts. And I think that's a month or two away. Chris and I have been playing It Takes Two, and that's kind of still on my list to finish. It's been great. We'll probably have an episode a little bit more in depth on that game. Chris hates this game, but I love Warframe. And Warframe just had a new bit of content drop around the music-based Warframe named Octavia. And I really want to try it out, and I really want to play a little bit, and I really want to get back into Warframe. I've been away for a couple, maybe 2 or 3 years now, 2 years. So there's just a lot of content for me to catch up on. But those are real quick hits. And that is not even the end of the list.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be joining you on the Warframe journey there, but I'll be interested to hear about it because I do like the music related things in games. For me, the list is a lot shorter. I would say, less on my to-do list or my want to-do list, but maybe a little bit broader. So one of my things is to finish up a couple things in the current season of World of Warcraft. There is an achievement called Keystone Master, where if you finish all of the dungeons at a level 15 key, then you get this achievement, you get a mount, it's all good. And I think I only have a month or two left before the next major patch comes out and that rolls over. But it's okay because out of the 8 dungeons that are out there, I only have 1 left to do. So I think that's very attainable, and shout out and thank you to my friends who are working with me to get through these dungeons. They already have Keystone Master themselves, so I appreciate their graciousness to help me run through those dungeons as we go. The other one in WoW that is probably less likely to be attained is Ahead of the Curve, or AotC, which is when you beat the current raid on Heroic before the next raid comes. So that's the medium level difficulty, where there's normal, Heroic, and Mythic. So I am also the last of my friend group to have that, and I don't know if I'm even going to get it this term, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not really an achievement hunter in World of Warcraft, but it is a fun thing to try to work towards, or at least hard content to try to push.
Have you done the raid at all in World of Warcraft? Have you done the lowest levels?
No, I haven't. I think I did the first wing of the LFR version of the raid, which is the looking for raid group matchmaking tool, which usually results in very uncoordinated groups that are not very good, but it's also way easier than any of the harder levels or tiers of the raid. So I think I did the first wing when it came out, but I haven't really done anything since, which means I need to practice up. I did watch a video for the Sire Denathrius, which is the final boss of the raid, to understand all of the different things you have to do there, which there are a lot. There's a lot of, you have to move over here, then move over there and dodge this fire and do that thing. And it gets to be pretty hectic, I would imagine. But again, I haven't tried it yet. So I also would need to get through all of the previous bosses, of which there are many. And I haven't really done any research on any of those. So that's why I say this is highly unlikely to actually happen. Because also, I don't have a current like raiding guild or anything like that at the moment. So it's not like I have a raid night or anything that's really enabling me to just join up with a scheduled time. But
you heard it here first, everyone. Chris wants to be a hardcore World of Warcraft raider.
That is not what I said. Also on my list is actually an older game, which probably is going to come as a surprise to many, Tomb Raider. So they did a re-release of, or not a re-release, but a trilogy of Tomb Raider games recently. You may or may not have heard of them. It was Tomb Raider Remastered or something like that. And then Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider. And this is really just to fill a void left by the Uncharted games, right? It's been a while since I beat Uncharted 4 and Uncharted Lost Legacy. And I really would like to do another one of those kind of story-driven adventure, first or third person, but in this case, third person shooter on the console. So I have all of these games. I picked up the first one on a sale for $3 the other day. And then the other two actually have been PlayStation Plus in the past. So I already had them from my previous subscriptions. So I'm looking forward to kind of playing through those again, kind of on the couch. It's a nice like group activity that my wife and I can do. We can, go through the story and the puzzles there on that kind of Indiana Jones style adventure gameplay. I've heard good things about these games. I don't know if they're any good, but I'm hoping that they're similar to, but not quite as good as Uncharted. Or they could be better. Better would be good too. And finally, for my list, before we kind of talk about our common things here, I have a PS5. I do not play it nearly as much as I probably would like to. And that is pretty much all I have to say about that, other than there's some good PS5 games coming out in the next couple of months. And I look forward to giving them a shot, like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which comes out in, I think, June.
The PlayStation 5 was a long-term investment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely waiting for God of War to come out, hopefully this year still, maybe next year. But there's also been some good stuff. I just finished and played through Maquette, which was a PlayStation Plus game from last month, and it was super fun. It was a PS5 free game, and it's like this recursive puzzle game, and like there's no enemies or anything. It's just very much kind of like Superliminal, where you have these different kind of recursive spatial puzzles. And it was really an interesting story, and it was really fun to play through, and it didn't take very long. So it really checked all the boxes for me. But I still have, as far as PS5 goes, I have Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I have Cyberpunk 2077, to try to play.
Have you tried booting that game or no?
No, I have not. I've been kind of waiting for the PS5.
Give it a little longer.
Yeah, they keep saying they have this giant patch that's coming, and like I keep waiting for the big like PS5 next gen console update to see kind of how that's going to shake out. I guess another game on PS5 that I'm waiting for is actually Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is getting its PS5 update in the summer. They announced that a couple months ago. So I want to finish that game. I'm probably a third of the way through it. And I'm kind of, at this point, waiting for that PS5 update to continue playing through it. Is it really going to change it that much? Probably not. But at this point, it's an excuse to say, oh yeah, I'm not putting it off. I'm not, forgetting about this game entirely. I'm just waiting for the next gen update. Yeah.
At least you have an excuse. I don't even know how to prioritize these. Okay. So that is like 80% of the list.
Yep.
And we've made it this long. But there's one quick one that I want to be on both of our lists, and then two more that we can dig into. The one I want to try to drag you into is Guild Wars 2 Super Adventure Box. It is by the time this comes out, this will be going on, and it is kind of like Guild Wars 2's April Fool's little thing that they do every year in April. It is like a little side festival adventure thing. It's the only festival in Guild Wars 2 that I care about, but it's like very like 8-bitty arcade graphic stuff. And I really want to play it with people this year. Just to like, not like there's like a super hard mode and like a challenge mode. And I just want to play the core one. And it just seems like a lot of fun. And I'm going to try to drag you into it. I think I'm going to try to drag one of our other friends that plays Guild Wars 2 into it just for a little bit, to have a little fun with it. I missed it last year and I really don't want to miss it this year.
I'm fine with that. I remember when Super Adventure Box actually was their April Fool's thing, like 6 or 7 years ago. And it was really cool because it kind of married Guild Wars with platforming. And I remember there was a whole like dungeon where you had to do like a bunch of jumping stuff. Kind of like it was jumping puzzles before they really had a ton of the jumping puzzles. And I am interested to try it. I think I actually tried to do it last year and no one was around. So I kind of missed out on it as well. But I'm willing to give that one a shot.
One of the games that is on both Chris and I's list is kind of one that has been this constant in Chris's life for, 10 years. And has had huge upswings and kind of fluctuated in mine a couple of times. But Dota 2 has kind of revamped their new player experience, or their new, how to learn the game and how to experience it and all of that. And I believe, Chris, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe this is all because of the anime that came out, and they're just having this huge marketing push to kind of get new people involved from the anime, and at the same time, like, try to make it more accessible, and it's worked for me. I'm watching the anime and I'm wanting to play the game.
Yeah, Dota Dragon's Blood is the anime that just came out. It's on Netflix, and it was a surprise, I would say. We're about halfway through it. And the only reason we're halfway through it is because we're trying to watch it together and kind of coordinate schedules, which is sometimes easier said than done, especially when you have a list of games this long to try to get through. But yes, Dota Dragon's Blood is actually really good. It's the story. It follows the story of Davian, the Dragon Knight, who's actually Dragon Knight is one of the Dota characters, and also Marana, who's another one of the Dota characters. And so they meet up together and they have this whole quest thing that they're doing and everything else. So I think that is what's driving all of this. It's really weird because Dota 2, of course, is made by Valve, and Valve is very, I would say, bad at communicating to their fans and their players, right? They tend to just kind of say, yeah, stuff will be ready when it's ready. It'll be done when it's done, and then we'll release it. Or they'll just not talk about something for like ever, and then all of a sudden they'll release it, or they'll all of a sudden cancel it. And I think it's weird because you don't get they don't have anything like Blizzard, where like Blizzard has BlizzCon every year. And at BlizzCon, they announce a bunch of stuff, or they say, hey, this is what we're working on, or hey, look forward to, Overwatch 2 coming soon in 2028 or whatever. At least they're working or theoretically working on, Overwatch 2. Whereas Valve with like Dota, they do the international every year, right? Which is their big esports tournament event. And they have kind of their major circuit where they, again, have esports stuff and the esports teams. But it sometimes feels like the game itself is a little bit forgotten, or is just kind of coasting. And that's kind of weird when you have something like this. They just came out with this whole new player experience and all of this training stuff and all of this like learn how to play in these like 40 different lessons. They have all of this stuff that's going on, and we can talk about kind of the effectiveness of that in a second. But like all of that stuff just drops out of nowhere on just a random day. And they're like, yeah, we'd like to focus on the new player experience. And by the way, here is all of these resources, including a completely revamped website and all of this stuff, which is awesome. It's really exciting as a Dota 2 player. It's just kind of like, man, guys, like I can never tell if you've just left this game for dead or if you're actively working on it. And it turns out almost always they are actively working on it in some way. It's just like, they never say anything about it. Like one year, or actually a couple years, they just like missed their Halloween event. Like they had a Halloween event for like 4 years in a row. And then all of a sudden it just like came to be, October or whatever. And there was just nothing. And there was not even a blog post to say, hey guys, we know you like Dire Tide. We're not there yet. We missed it this year. Sorry. Like it was just as if it never existed. And then I think eventually they did do something, in December. They said, oops, we missed Halloween. But like... it's just
our bad.
Yeah, I mean, really, it comes the same time every year. And so it's like those kinds of things where like you're talking about Super Adventure Box is Guild Wars' thing that they do every April for April Fools and around that time. And there is just no level of predictability for anything like that with Dota 2. And so that's why these updates kind of come out of the blue, and it's nice, but also a little bit frustrating as a fan of the franchise. And now I will step off my soapbox and stop ranting.
It sounds like you're always blindsided, which is just not a good feeling to have as a player of a game or a user of a software or whatever it is, right? It just constantly being blindsided and then ignored and then blindsided and then ignored. This one very clearly coincided with the release of the anime. I don't think they told anyone they were going to be working on this, or at least they didn't really communicate it clearly. But it timed up nicely, so they had certainly planned it.
Oh yeah, I think they have people that are making plans. It's just that whoever writes their blog is like only there every third month.
Was the anime announced? Like, was that something that we all knew was coming on a certain day?
Yeah, they actually did a pretty big push for the anime. They had an in-client thing where they had like, ooh, watch the trailer and here's the stuff and this is the date and all of that. They did do a pretty big push for that. And I think they are getting better because I think they're trying to kind of take ownership of their kind of franchise that they've got going on here, which is great to see because, again, it's a really interesting world, a really interesting, set of heroes. They have over 100 heroes for Dota 2, and unlike most of the games in their genre, you don't have to buy the heroes to be able to play them, right? So if you're playing Dota 2, you have access to all 120 of the heroes or whatever it is from the moment that you first start the first game, as opposed to League of Legends where you have to be like, okay, well, I really like, this character, but they're in the rotation this week and not next week. And so if I want to play Ashe or Garen or whoever my favorite League of Legends hero is, I have to buy them, right? So that I always have them accessible to me. Whereas in Dota, it's just like, yeah, I always love to play Viper, or I like to play Huskar, or I like to play Broodmother, or whatever. And you just pick them out of the list. Like if you're playing all pick, you have literally all the picks.
I really like Dota's monetization methods. Essentially, it's customization. You pay for it. You can buy it. A little bit of loot boxy, but I even like how they do loot boxes. And then Dota Plus, which is, statistics, information, kind of, it tracks some of your stuff. You maybe get a few more cosmetics for it. You'll know, I think you know way more about that, but I like generally as a new player coming in, it is much more approachable because all of the heroes are unlocked. It's a little overwhelming, but I don't feel like kind of left out or like I'm new because I don't have access to certain like functional parts of the game.
Yeah, overwhelming is definitely the word that I latched onto in that sentence, in terms of it is a very big game and maybe even more so than something like a League of Legends, which is itself not a simple game at all. There's a lot of mechanics to Dota 2 in terms of, okay, here's lanes, here's creeps, here's denying, here's last hits, here's gold, here's, you lose gold when you die, you got to do Roshan, you can Aegis of the Immortal, there's shops, there's secret shops, there's teleport scrolls instead of being able to always go back to base, there's no mounts, there's that, like it's the courier to get items, all of that stuff. Sorry, I just rattled off all those things. But those are all the different kinds of things you have to keep track of in that game. And I can absolutely understand that coming into it as a new player is really difficult. I will say, as an old player who's been doing this for a long time and doesn't play as often as I used to, I don't keep up with the metagame nearly as often or as much as I used to. And sometimes things happen and it's like, oh, there's no side lane shops anymore. Oh, that's weird. And like, oh, like one of my friends will be like, yeah, they changed that like 6 months ago. And so then I get to do that to my friends. Like Jason comes in, he's like, oh, there's no side lane shops anymore. I said, yeah, they changed it like 2 years ago. So it's just funny the way that all of that works. I tend to ramp up on Dota 2. I will say my season for Dota 2 is in the summer because that's when the international happens. And that's when they do what was really the first, I would say, really successful iteration of the season pass or like battle pass idea, which is what the Rocket League Rocket Pass is based on. And the Sea of Thieves Pirate Pass and all of that, all of these different kind of 100 level battle passes, Fortnite, those all I think came from the Dota 2 International Compendium. Now it's called the Battle Pass. And all of that really is a good monetization model where you have these levels and you have to get this like experience that comes from the metagame of like playing the actual game, but you can also buy them in like level packs and all this stuff, and it unlocks a bunch of cosmetic stuff. So all of that to say that I'm just ranting about how great Dota is and how much I do enjoy playing it.
Well, I think that's the core of this conversation, right? It has had you coming back for years. Even if you don't play regularly all the time, you're never kind of away from it. I played a lot, I think more in college and briefly after college, but it has me coming back now. And that it's been a nice kind of return experience. It's a lot more welcoming now than it was as a game. I'm not sure how the community is, but the game itself is a lot more welcoming. They're much more like, hey, new player, look over here, please learn how to play. And that's kind of nice.
Yeah, they've introduced a new player mode, which has a queue time maximum of, I think, 1 minute, and it'll just fill all the teams with bots if you are in a queue. And for more than 1 minute in new player mode, it just puts bots on everybody's team. And also, there's no penalty for leaving those new player games. So if you start a new player game and you pick a hero and you're like, oh, this is not working for me, you can just leave that game and there's no penalty. You can just jump right into another one. So really, they've tried to lower the stakes, because in a game like Dota, where it's kind of a commitment to play, right? You have to commit to a 5+ minute queue to find a game, which requires 10 people all at relatively the same skill level to engage in this 5-on-5 game. Then there's another maybe 3 to 5 minutes of setup time for picking heroes and strategy time and all of that stuff, and the pregame stuff. And then you're committing in a non-turbo game, right, in a normal speed game, to like a 45-minute to an hour-long game, which is a pretty big commitment. I mean, that's don't get me wrong, that is a huge commitment of time. And so when you have somebody that's trolling or that's toxic or that leaves or whatever on your team, that really ruins the experience for the rest of the team. And that's why it's been difficult to get into these games, because you're like, okay, well, I don't want to make this big commitment of time to start playing this game if it's going to lock me into something that I'm not enjoying. And so I think with the new player mode, they've really done a good job of lowering the barrier to entry on that, to make it easy to get into it. And I feel like I can recommend my friends to say, hey, come on, let's try this. Let's just try the new player mode, or maybe we can try a turbo mode, which is everything is, sped up roughly double in terms of experience of gold and all that. Like we can use these more accessible modes in order to get started. And I think that's really a big advantage to this new update. What do you think, Jason? As a new player, is it still super overwhelming, or is it okay? And I say new player, you're an old player, but you're essentially a new player now.
Well, yeah, I mean, last time I played like really, really heavily, I think there were like 45 heroes.
My goodness.
I don't know. The game first came out with like 36 or 38, right? Like I think there were not very many heroes.
70 heroes, but now there's like 110.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know half of them. I would say I still do not feel comfortable playing regular matches. It either have to be bot matches or practice matches or new player matches, or I mean, we've played some turbo matches. It kind of got stomped, but it wasn't bad. Like, it wasn't overwhelming. I would say there are still some certain elements of the game that I don't want to call them like the meta game, because they're not outside of the game, but they're like the meta elements of a game, in that I don't know when to leave my lane. I don't know when, like, there are some, like, you have to collect the runes every 5 minutes, and you only know that because you know that the things are every 5 minutes. Things like that I'm not quite comfortable with yet. And I haven't gotten very far in the training. We did want to talk about the training a little bit, where they said, like, they try to teach a lot of this stuff in like really like, 3 to 5 minute playable hands-on lessons. But I don't know how well it translates to a real game, only because, as you said, you can know all of the individual mechanics, but part of Dota and part of MOBAs in general are just how much is going on all at the same time. Just how much you have to pay attention to, what all the decision points are. while at the same time mechanically being very good at controlling your individual character, it is a lot. It takes a lot of time to make certain things automatic in your mind without having to actively think about them. It's a lot like driving. It's a lot like learning how to drive. Like when you first start, you're intricately paying attention to every element of it, and eventually it becomes automatic so that you can more accurately pay attention to the things that are out of the ordinary, so that you can react to certain situations. And I'm not there yet. We have left the biggest kahuna for last.
Well, it's the biggest based on recent time spent and potential for spending of time, not necessarily for the largest property on the list here.
No. Chris and I, for some reason, you may have to remind me, but Chris and I have gotten back into Factorio.
I think all of this started when a mutual friend of ours got a home server and was looking for something to do with it. He put together this server and said, "Ooh, I can serve games now from my house." We said, "Oh, cool." And we've always boomeranged around on Factorio, I would say, right? Which is the logistics and factory building game. And it has a really, really easy to set up and really good dedicated server that you can just download and run on like any computer. I ran one on a like VM in the cloud at one point for a little while, but I didn't keep it up and didn't, keep backups or anything like that. And eventually it died. But our friend here was really interested in setting up this Factorio thing as a server. And so then our friend group kind of just was like, okay, we'll give this a shot. And then all of a sudden we're 15 hours into a particular save and building this giant factory with a million little flying robots and bunches of belts and all sorts of cool stuff.
It consumes you.
Yes, one does not just play Factorio. I would say that's probably the meme for that.
That is most definitely true. I mean, I think I used the phrase last night, "I don't want to see the sunrise, I'm going to bed."
Yes, that is definitely a risk when playing Factorio. More so in my younger years than lately, but that game is very one more optimization, one more factory, one more thing. It's so easy to just like, I'm going to do this thing and then I'm going to go to bed. It's like, oh wait, nope, got distracted, did this other thing, not going to bed yet. Like, it's very easy to get sucked in. It
has two things kind of that make it that way. The one is I'm reminded of the video where the guy has to change the light bulb in the garage or something. So he goes for the screwdriver, which is on a shaky shelf. So he fixes the shelf, but in order to fix the shelf, he needs some screws. And to get the screws, it's in a drawer that sticks or something. Like, and he just has like this like series of building up like stack of tasks that he has to get done just to change the light bulb in the garage. Mm-hmm. There's that element of it. So there's that exists in Factorio, right? Oh, I want to build this, so I need to do this, so I need to do this, so I need to do this. And by the time you get to the top of the stack, you're like, what the heck was I trying to accomplish in the first place?
Yep, sounds about right.
But on top of that, not only is there this like building series of things, but there's also an infinite number of ways to do something and an almost infinite number of things to do. You know, we're not at like we're approaching end game for like the traditional part of the game, right? I think it's launch a rocket into space. Mm-hmm. Yep. You crash landed and now you're trying to get off this planet. That's like the story. But almost everyone I watch that plays this game doesn't even try to do that because there's just so much freedom and optimization and trying stuff and building trains. I love trains.
Oh my goodness.
And like, there's just, this game is just so open-ended, but also at the same time, so structured. It's not a Minecraft.
Oh no, it is not a Minecraft.
It's not a sandbox, but at the same time, there's really no limit.
I think what it comes from is there is a really good toolbox, right? And it's something that's been very finely iterated, I would say, right? Factorio was in early access for I don't know, 8 years or something, right? They took forever to get to a 1.0. And I mean, it was playable since, year 1 or 2 of that 8 years. And people have been playing it since then. But it's really that the tool set, which is based around mostly these, conveyor belts and these little inserter arms and, these drills that get ore and then machines that process all this stuff, is basically the gist of it. Having all of those pieces are very simple, but they're very composable, right? It's easy to put them all together as different things, right? And different shapes. And I think that's what's so appealing about it. It's like, oh yeah, I can do this, and I can make this arm go there, and I can run this belt here and use the underground belts to go crisscross all over the place and go crazy. And then, you do get into things like trains where it's like, oh, there's this entire like blocking network of chain rail signals and all sorts of crazy stuff that I really don't understand, but Jason's very excited about. And those things all come together as these kind of composable systems. And then you get into, there's little drones that can fly around and bring you stuff and build stuff and tear down stuff and do all that. It's just a really flexible game with a very rock solid base, I would say.
I think you said it right. I think the one point that really kind of draws me now that you're saying a lot of this is that it is a perfect game in that everything you do matters towards an end goal, right? There is I've said this in the past, there's a singular purpose, but in that you can break down your tasks or your objectives into much smaller pieces, as small or as big as you want to make them, as complex or as simple as you want to make them. You have a lot of freedom in how you get to that end objective. But it's not like a bunch of mini games. It's not like a bunch of like, because you could think of a scenario where like, lay out this individual factory. But it all goes back to building a base that is supposed to launch a rocket into space.
I think the other piece that it has going for it, or another thing that is really keeps you playing, is that it's an optimization game, right? You have these things where you have factories that need to have ingredients that get put into the factory in order to make whatever the next thing is. And those ingredients might have ingredients to themselves, and those ingredients might have ingredients to themselves. And what can happen is something way upstream will stop working or change, and it will completely break whatever the downstream thing 8 steps later is. And that makes you kind of think like, oh, well, if I could just fix iron plates, then everything will be better, right? All in the world will be right. And then you fix iron plates and it's like, oh, well, now the problem is green circuits. Man, we need more green circuits. And so then you fix the green circuits and now you're out of iron plates again. And so you kind of have this loop where you're like, oh, well, now I got to go fix the iron plates again. And it really, and all of it you can kind of see, it doesn't feel unfair. It's not like the game is like imposing these things on you, right? All of this is a self-made problem. This is all your fault, right? You put these things together, you make it use more iron plates, and then you have less of them to go around for other things. So obviously you need to make more. It doesn't feel like there's an AI that is kind of playing against you, or like the game is trying to make you lose or anything. I mean, granted, it's also difficult to lose Factorio because you respawn if you die, but the framework of the game doesn't really punish you, I would say. It's all something that you can see the reasoning behind and say, oh, yeah, it's because we started making the whatever that we need to now beef up our production of this other thing. So I think it's a really nice, like, that tension all comes from player actions, not from game setup.
Yeah, there's very little randomness to the game. There are some instances of a dice roll, but for the most part, everything can be calculated. You can have a perfectly balanced run if you want. That is one element of Factorio that I like. That is kind of like, in general, you can be like, the thing I like about Factorio is when a lot of people play it, they're like, hey, I know that this yellow belt is supposed to have 30 miners to maximize the belt, but it's got like 33. It's fine. Whereas what I don't like, Factorio gets compared a lot to Satisfactory. Satisfactory being a very similar kind of like mechanical game, but it's first person instead of top down. And I don't care for Satisfactory at all. I think one of the reasons for it is Satisfactory is absolutely intended to be, this produces 15, this produces 30. I need 2 of those for one of these. It's very, very, very ratio structured. Whereas Factorio is more like, I need to keep the lines full. I need to balance things in general. I know the general speed of stuff. I know how to make it better, but I'm not like super worried about the exact numbers. And I really like that about Factorio. Also, I think the top-down element of it for me gives me a much better like sense of pride and accomplishment. See, I said it. Just because like you start with nothing, right? You start with your character and you start by hand mining stuff. And eventually you get to the point where you can't see your whole base on your screen at the same time, even if you scroll out. And then you get to the point where if you go to your map and scroll out, you can't even recognize the individual pieces of your factory. It just becomes, that's the construction area, and that's the mining area, and that's the smelting area, right? Like you can't identify areas even on like the larger map. And you really start to like think about that you've built this amazing working, balanced, hopefully, structure that all works together, and you did it one piece at a time.
That is a good way to think about it. When you zoom out and you see this giant factory that you've built, it does lend itself to a good feeling of pride and accomplishment.
I just don't think I don't get the same sense of it when I'm playing something like Satisfactory. I just don't get that sense of like, oh, look at all of this. Like you can, if you get to a really high point in Satisfactory, you can look over it all and you kind of see the landscape, but you don't, in my mind, really see the organism that your factory has become.
This is a really nitpicky thing, but I actually think that Factorio having a top-down 2D grid-based kind of building system is better than the 3D system in Satisfactory, because everything is always very clean and obvious as to what it's doing. Whereas in Satisfactory, you can get kind of tripped up on the like, oh, well, I need to go up and around a corner, right? So now I need like a compound corner. And that's never a problem in Factorio, because it's always just 2D. It's right. This is on the ground or it's doing an underground belt, and that's it. There's no like height aspect to it, which is kind of refreshing. It simplifies it well enough so that the game mechanics get out of your way, and it's not like, oh, well, I got to figure out how to jump high enough so that I can get this thing up on top of that mountain. It's like, no, everything's top down. Like as you place things, you're just kind of, as long as your character's within some reasonable range, you can place whatever you want. And all of that, and I do think that simplification works in their favor. And Factorio came first. I mean, Factorio was around well before Satisfactory, so it's not like Factorio came and improved upon this or iterated on it. It's really that Satisfactory was trying to do something different. And I was very excited for Satisfactory when it came out. Actually, that's why I got the Epic Games Store the first time, was because Satisfactory was an exclusive for at least a year. Now it's on Steam also, and it is still a good game. I wouldn't say it's not, but it is not the same, and Factorio is better.
No, it definitely scratches a very different itch. Some people like it way better, and that's, I think that's fine. I don't think it doesn't do it for me.
Another thing that Factorio does really well, I think, that gives it a lot of points in my book, is that it is a multiplayer game that you play with people that you can be separate but together, right? Whereas people will say that about Minecraft, but to me, Minecraft is so separate but separate. Because in Minecraft, you are building, whatever you're building, and you're making this base and doing all this stuff, but like you're really just exploring on your own and bringing stuff back to the main base or whatever. At least that's what it felt like in my playthrough and experience. Whereas in Factorio, you might be doing your thing on your own, but there's a pretty good chance that whatever you're doing on your own, you're going to try to integrate back into the larger system, because you're probably going off to find more raw materials, or you're trying to build something to improve, create processed materials so that you and others can use them. And I think that really, even though people can be off doing their own thing, it encourages group play and interconnectedness and interdependence on your fellow multiplayer players, which is not the case to me in something like a Minecraft.
Yeah, if you know me at all, you're going to find the next analogy very confusing, but it reminds me of a lot of like a group of people cooking in a kitchen.
Sure.
Whereas like I'll like look over to Chris and I'll be like, "Hey, where's the chef's knife? Or where are the onions you cut up?" Or, you know, it's just this thing where you're constantly kind of like, "Hey, we're all trying to make a meal here. We're all trying to do this thing, but we all have our own individual tasks that come back together." I you know, there's a lot of times where like we're getting attacked by the one enemy that's in the game that really is just kind of a nuisance that adds an element to the game. Honestly, a lot of times I just turn it off. But you know, they'll be like, Chris and I'll be doing something. I'll be like, "Hey, Chris, you're a little closer. Can you go take care of that?" Or, you know, I'll be, "Hey, I know we have this material somewhere where you built that piece of the factory. Do you know where that is? Or do you remember where that is in the grand scheme of things?" And it's just nice to do that. We also tend to specialize a little bit. I love trains. They're so fun. And as Chris said, like the signaling and the rails and all of that is just so cool. How it all works, because the trains drive themselves. Like I don't know if we mentioned that, but the trains, you put them on a schedule and they drive on the rails by themselves, but there are multiple trains sharing the same rails. So you have to set up signals on the rails for the trains to follow automatically so they don't crash into each other. It's just so cool. But I love doing that. And I tend to make a lot of trains. And Chris, you know, he just lets me do that. And it's just kind of how it happens.
The thing about those is that I reap the benefits of Jason's train obsession, because he uses the trains to bring stuff to the factory with all the belts, which is really where I kind of get into it, is doing more things with transport belts and moving things around. And I'll run a belt out for 7 miles to go get coal or steel or whatever.
And that drives me nuts.
But I don't care like that it takes a lot of resources to do that. Like, it's very reliable and it works every time, and I don't have to think about, you know, train signaling and why does this train not move and that one deadlocks with this one. Like, I don't have to think about any of that stuff, and I just run my little belt and it just gets where it needs to go. And if I can take stuff from the train station and bring it into the belt network and kind of then use it to do all of the, you know, building of other processed materials, then that's great. You know, we can coexist, and Jason can do his much better train thing, right? And I can do my kind of more simplistic belt thing and put them together and compose them. But ultimately, they are interdependent because, you know, the train needs fuel. And so I need to get the fuel to where the train station is so that it can go onto the train. And then I need the stuff that comes off the train, right? I need the things that are coming into the train station. So I really like how interdependent those things are. And even though we tend to specialize and do those things mostly separately, we can always come over and explain things to each other and really have a common language of like, okay, you see how this works. You see, you know, Jason got into some train and starts driving it around a track and shows me where the little lights turn green and red for the automatic signaling of the chain signals on the train. And I was like, this is really cool. I barely understand it, but this is really cool. So I think, you know, and once you explain it to me, then I got it. But like, that's not something that I guess I sit down and think about and try to come up with the designs for, but I really appreciate that you do.
Well, and I mean, I haven't touched the nuclear reactor, right? The whole energy generation piece of it. I don't care to. I just don't. I'm glad you took care of it. But it brings up a great point that part of the fun for me in Factorio is just all of the content that's out there on how to do things, the different methods in which to do things, the different recommendations. I mean, I mentioned like how endless and how many open possibilities there are within the toolbox that exists. And I have just consumed so much content on watching other people play the game, what their take is on it, how they do something, how they approach a problem, how they design a solution. And that is just, it's one of the fun pieces of the game. that has honestly, like, we started playing and I want to restart again. I want to play again because I'm just like, you change one little variable, like where the water is, or what the starting location of your resources are, or how close the nearest patch of coal is once you deplete your original patch. You change one little variable and the game is entirely different. And I really like that. And you play it a second time and you learned all the things you learned from your first run through. And it is just a fun, repeatable, but also like really enjoyable learning experience. Also, trains are fun.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be restarting the current server until we get that rocket into space, because we are so close right now, and that'll be exciting.
I've never beat the game.
Neither have I. I haven't either. I've had this game for years and years, and I've never actually finished it. Never beaten it. Never
made it. I just you get so distracted, and then by the time you get distracted, it's been a month of you playing it for 15 hours a weekend, and you're just like, I'm done, and you just never beat it. We're going to beat the game this time. We're going to do it.
I feel like we have to like schedule it so that everybody can be there. Like we have to like have like a party, like an event for everybody to log on and watch it.
I think there's a button. I'm pretty sure it doesn't launch automatically. So yes, I think we could probably do that.
I also think that particular event is going to be very underwhelming. We're going to click a button. It's going to play a little animation, and that's going to be it. And we'll say, oh, that was it. Oh, cool. And then go back to optimizing trains.
Yes. So I said we didn't want to have a 7-hour episode, but this is, I think we're done. Only 45 things on the list.
Yes, exactly.
Chris and I say every week that we would love to hear from you, and it is really true. We'd love to know what's on your gaming to-do list. We'd love to know, what pieces of this you have opinions on, or if you've played Factorio and have similar experiences, or, if you're a Satisfactory fan and, you'd just be wrong about that. That's okay. Every week we have told you that you can email us by visiting pnapodcast.com. That's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com. But now, starting now, we will have a Discord server as well. And we would love for you to come join the Discord server, hang out. We will have, kind of separate channels for things that you may want to talk about. What I'd really love to see is any suggestions or questions or anything like that you have about the show, but also just a place to hang out and chat about anything gaming related or anything else, maybe.
We'll have a link to that in our show notes, or you can visit us at discord.pnapodcast.com to join directly. That's discord.p, the letter N, and the letter A, podcast.com. On our website, pnapodcast.com, that's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com, you'll find links to all of our older episodes, and you can read the show notes.
We'd really love for you to join us in the Discord server, or just send us any kind of feedback you have. And we'd really love if you would just share the show with your friends.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time. I sometimes like to sit in Discord and sometimes I'll just do the deafen thing where it's like, I'm here, I'm online, I'm sitting at my computer. You can at me if you need me. I will then listen and talk to you, but that I'm around.
But you're green. I already know you're at your computer.
Well, but sometimes I could be green and not be around, I think.
I mean, then it flips to yellow.
I guess. How long does it take to flip from green to yellow, though?
I think it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, see, that's 5 minutes.
Yeah, but then you'll get it on your phone.
That's true.
I know you.
Oh, well, for me specifically, personally, yes, I will get it on my phone.
You don't need to be deafened in a channel. I know you're listening.
Always watching.